And here I start with a statement that I'm sure that all of us know. We either would have repeated it or heard us with it. And it comes from the children. Of course, those of you who are my age range or older will be a bit more familiar with it. I'm not so sure if these children actually use it these days. But it says, sticks and stones may break my bones. You know what I'm talking about. Words can never harm me. But you know something? That is one big lie. It was never true. Because all of us can think of experiences that we have had. Their words were even more damaging than the licks that we got. As we tend to say, I cannot feel any licks that I got back in the 1960s or the 70s. But you know, when persons say certain things to us, they are so impacting that we remember them for life. And there are so many people who have been hurt by things that were said. But thank God there are also so many people who have gone on to be good, even great, if you want to use that word, because of things that have been said. And therefore, we need to look at this whole issue again and again to ensure that we can do what we are able to ensure that when we use words, that we use them effectively for good. So often we speak out of turn. And on other times we may use words, we may be in turn, but the selection of words may be a bit poor. And we acknowledge that there are times when it's better to be silent, but we speak anyway. At times we may have good intentions, but the ridiculous structure of our sentence can it cause more harm than good. Imagine speaking to a person who have just had their hand cut off and saying to them, "Oh, you look handsome without it." I'm absolutely sure that's a very, very poor choice of words. You say the intention would have been good, but certainly you don't want to make a statement like that. So we need to be extremely careful. And I want to take a look at James chapter 3. And I'm going to, as I go through, I'm going to mention some passages that you may want to take note of, that you can, at your leisure, look at them again. Because the truth is, we do not want persons to just take what we say from the pulpit for granted, but rather to meditate on them afterwards so that you can prove what we are saying, whether for good or otherwise. So let's look at James chapter 3. And that's between the first 12 and the first 12 verses. James recognized that there was a problem with the people. Are you realizing here that the issues that we have in this day are similar or the same as those which existed way, way back long, long before we were born? And here was James lamenting. And we must know that he was not focusing on the non-Christians, but rather he was speaking about the people who were in the church. And he recognized that even among Christians, there was a problem relating to talking. And as we have just said, sometimes we talk in terms, sometimes we talk on the turn, sometimes we say the right thing. Unfortunately, sometimes we say the wrong thing. And so he lamented. He said in verse 7, all kinds of birds, of animals and birds and reptiles and sea creatures are tamed and have been tamed by mankind. But unfortunately, no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. See, James here was concerned with the way people were speaking and the sort of damage that speaking does. But if I take the modern times, I believe that if James was speaking in this time, that he would not only would have talked about what the tongue does, because the technology have now taken over. In this modern time, we not only talk, as a matter of fact, some of us do a lot less talking, but I wouldn't even say right, we type. Because we have been taken over now with Facebook, Instagram, and all the rest. I don't really do those things. I spend so many hours in technology that I don't have the time for that sort of thing. But I hear what is happening. And very often the damage that is done nowadays is not done by persons speaking face to face. I believe some of us have said it become a little cowardly that persons now hide behind the computer to say what they want to say. So the messages are still passed, but not necessarily by face-to-face presentation, but via the computer. And you see the exact same situation that existed in James' time. James went on, large ships are steered by a small rudder. That little flap at the back of the ship, it may look big when compared to the size of a man, but when you look at a ship, sometimes as much as 100 feet long, and even longer these days, when you look at the rudder at the back of it, that attempts to change the flow of the tide and cause the ship to change direction is very small. And James is recognizing that that little rudder at the back of the ship literally steers the ship. He also looked at horses. He said, man control horses with a bit. That is a piece of metal that runs across the horse's mouth. And we know how that works. It goes across the tongue, attaches to corners of the horse's mouth, and by pulling on the reins, it brings a bit of pain to the corner of the horse's mouth, and the horse, trying to get away from that pain, but turn in that direction. So you put the other side, you turn that side. So man control a ship with a rudder, small rudder, and control a horse with a bit in his mouth. But here's what he says. But the tongue creates a problem, it's a challenge. He then went on to liken the tongue to a small spark, which can set a big forest on fire. And we can look at what has been happening. I'm sure we watch the news in the United States and even in Canada recently. Places like California, Texas, so on. We have these large fires that burn down hundreds of acres, thousands of acres even. Start by only a spark. Think of a match. Very, very small flame. But look at the amount of damage that's done by that small spark. And James is likening the few words that are spoken by a person to that small spark and the damage that it does to the great forests that are burnt down by the flame that then develops from that small spark. And therefore we can think of the gossip statements and the little lies and other degrading things that we tend to say to others and the type of damage that such can do. And he called the tongue or even the mouth, the most evil part of the body. Of course, it is argued that James was not focusing so much on the external damage, but the damage that what we say can do to our bodies. He was, according to some commentators, more concerned with personal damage that can be done by the speaker. But we want to recognize both in the same context, because not only will we destroy ourselves, as we will see later, with what we speak, but we will also destroy others if we say the wrong things. And so he said in verse 6, it sets a person's whole way of life on fire, and the tongue itself is set on fire by hell. He went on to speak to the contradictory way in which we use our mouths. He said at one time we are heard praising God, but then with the same mouth we curse others. So that praises and cursing comes out of the same mouth. I suppose we can identify with that. I am pretty sure that all of us will at some point in time heard someone who we know to be part of some congregation say harsh and unpleasant things about others. We may have done it ourselves at some point in time. But here is a concern, a really serious concern. James recognized that this should not be, and he actually said it. There's no way that cursing and blessings should come from the same mouth. And follow his logic. He said, can fresh water and salt water come from the same spring? He said, neither can we get olives from fig trees. Let me bring that in a more modern context. We cannot get mangoes from a banana tree. Totally impossible. Neither can we get, James said, figs from a grapevine. I wonder if you young people know what figs. Not necessarily figs made here, but figs in Barbarian context. We all know bananas. Figs look just like bananas, but they're shorter, a little fatter, and a little sweeter. I suspect some people want to argue otherwise, but for me, the figs are sweeter. So that's why I said, neither can we get bananas, from a grapevine. I'm sure everybody knows a grapevine. So we can't understand James' concern. Why should our mouths be different? If one tree cannot produce fruits of another, of course, I believe the technologists will want to argue that nowadays people are grafting trees. But I think you are aware, though, that you are prohibited from grafting one tree onto another. You can graft one type of lime tree to another, one type of mango tree to another, but you're not supposed to graft a mango tree to an apple tree or anything like that. I think that, I'm not sure, but I think that may be written into law. I will have to double check that. But under normal conditions, without grafting, we are saying that one tree cannot produce the fruit of another. And therefore, James is arguing, and we are agreeing with him this morning, that the same mouth that we use for praising God every morning and every night should not be used for cursing anyone. I suppose that if James was living in the present time, that is our time, he would have gone a little deeper into the issue, having the benefit of a wider range of scriptures as we do, and of course, a bit more exposure to the type of education that we have been exposed to in our day. And therefore, I want to turn our attention to another passage of scripture that you may want to note so that we can look a little deeper at this issue. Mark chapter 7, between verse 14 and 23. And this passage of scripture focuses on Jesus and gives us some insight to the root, the real root of the problem. You see, James looked at the symptoms, the after effect. But here, Jesus looks a little deeper at the problem. When we look at this, we recognize that our mouth and our tongue are not independent parts of our bodies, but they are members of the whole body, and they are controlled by a central component, that is the brain. And here, what Jesus says to the crowd. Of course, this was after he would have listened to the Pharisees and their complaints about what they were doing. And he said, just call the crowd together aside, and this is what he said: nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of the person that defiles them. Now, what is Jesus talking about here? This was a reference to the questions and statements which were made by the Pharisees, who were concerned that Jesus and his followers were not observing the customs and the rules as they were. They were obsessed with washing, and in particular the washing of their hands. They wanted to avoid defilement, otherwise known as contamination. And what they did, they took the laws which were given back in Moses' times and extended them to suit their own whims and fancies. They were not only sticking to these traditions, but they wanted to bind others by these rituals which they thought were the things that would get them into heaven. Now let's take a reference to see where this was started. This is one of the earlier references for this hand washing business, and it's from Exodus 30. And between verse 19 and 21, this is what it reads: Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet from it. When they enter the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water, so that they will not die. So when they approach the altar to minister, by offering up in smoke of a fire sacrifice to the Lord, so they shall wash their hands and their feet, so that they will not die. And it shall be a perpetual statute for them, for Aaron, and for his descendants throughout their generations. So the laws of hand washing and feet washing would have been given to the Israelites during their journey from Egypt through Moses. And they were bound by these laws. But they say that the Pharisees in the time of Jesus would have taken these same laws and extended them so that they went well beyond what Moses would have passed down to his people out of the laws that were given to him over the time by God. And the Pharisees would have been caught up with these rituals, and they have felt that by keeping these rituals that they would have been able to remain undefiled. It's even said that they felt that if they wash their hands in the morning and they did not come in contact with other persons, that their hands will remain clean all day. But once they come in contact with someone else, especially if the person was not Pharisee, then they have to go wash their hands again. It is also said that in preparation for eating, they ate with their fingers. So for health reasons and others, they had to wash their hands at the river or at the lake. And there was a specific way of doing it. They would rub the face of one hand into the palm of the other, And then they will hold their fingers together in the upward position so that the water will run down to their elbow rather than back onto their hands, so that their hands remain clean when they go to eat. And apparently, Jesus and his followers were not following that custom. Obviously, Jesus knew better. And they were complaining, Master, why these people that you have following are not following tradition? Why are they defiling themselves by not doing all this fancy hand washing? And there you see in Jesus' reply. You see, when Jesus spoke, he said to them, of course, after he made the statement, some of his followers asked him what exactly he meant by the statement. What comes out of the body is what defiles you rather than what goes in. Because as I said, the food goes in and is passed out, it goes to the stomach and not to the heart. He said, this verse 18, don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach and then out of their body. I find this a little interesting because this statement sit well for the day. I suspect that if Jesus was speaking today, he would have said it a little different. Because what comes to mind is that nowadays, persons are putting a lot of silly things in their mouths that certainly affect their mind. Take, for example, the people who are smoking marijuana. People are taking all sorts of alcoholic beverages, which are now described as mind-changing, I don't remember the other word, mind-changing substances. But I want you to understand that Jesus was not talking about those things. He was talking about food, ordinary food. So he said, you eat the normal food, it goes to the stomach. Your body uses what it wants and disposes of the rest. So that is not what would spiritually defile a person, but rather what comes out of the person. And we understand why as we go on. He went on to say, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. And he mentions some. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. Out of a person's heart, Jesus said, these things come. That is what defiles the person. He said, all these evil come from inside and defile a person. In other words, spiritually contaminate a person. So here's a big question. Is it really the mouth which needs fixing? Or is it the heart or mind? That's our question this morning. I just used two terms that which we tend to use interchangeably. But some authors make a slight difference between the two of them. What it says that the mind is the thinking part of the person, while the heart is a deeper part that deals with feelings and conscience. The two cannot be separated. I guess that is why we tend to interchange the two of them. In our everyday action, so therefore we know that all everyday actions are determined by our thoughts. You know, very often I've had to speak to persons who say some really nasty things to others. And when they say, why do you say that? I say, oh, sorry, I was not thinking. Wrong again. There's absolutely no way that our mouths can speak unless our brains are functioning. And the only time that our brains operate separate from our brain are not even absolute. It's that we are mad. And we are not mad. So therefore it says that we think. Sometimes we act on our thoughts too quickly. So it wasn't that we wasn't thinking. It's just that we act too quickly. Maybe they didn't think enough. But if we follow the line that Jesus is going here, sometimes we may have been thinking enough, but thinking the wrong things. And therefore, what is inside of us, what we are thinking, is what comes out to our mouths. And as I said earlier, comes out when we started typing these fancy programs to send messages all over the world. Studies have shown that the brain coordinates the functions of all the muscles, and you will agree that all tongues and all mouths have muscles. That's how they function. Without muscles, there won't be any movement. So that the brain decides how to formulate the movement so that we can have the frequency coming out to form the words that we speak. But the actual words, we would agree, comes from within us. It's what we are thinking that comes out. And one of the authors that I've checked this one says, human beings are thinking creatures. And every moment, our minds are working and producing one thought or the other. So I'm sorry for those who are thinking that we spoke without thinking. No, we thought. It's just that we didn't think the right thing. The point I'm making here is that our tongues only act as a vehicle to express what is within our minds. Almost, as I said already, cannot speak a single word unless it's first developed in the inner man. And this means that in order for us to reduce, minimize, or eliminate the concerns that James had, we have to do something within us. We have to examine and adjust how we perceive others. We have to upgrade our thoughts in keeping with our mandate as Christians. Very, very important. Our thoughts has to be along the lines of Christians. Then and only then can we have some form of control over what we say, both to and about others. So how do we do that? We do not have to do what the rest of the world is doing. Instead, we must turn to and depend on the scriptures for our guidance. And there are many. But I will just mention a few. Interestingly enough, this morning we read Colossians chapter 3. And therein lies the answer. It says, Paul says to the Christians, the Colossian Christians, set your hearts on things where? Above. Where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. And then he goes on in verse 2 to say, set your minds on things above. Second time, not on earthly things. You see, too often we are caught up with the earthly things, which includes systems and rituals, even petty things, which are distractions, which is basically the same as if the Pharisees in the first passage that I mentioned. But to do so, they are told, the Christians are in the Colossians, that they must put aside a number of things. They must put aside, and of course, once it was said to the Colossians, it's being said to us as well. We must put aside anger. We must put aside rage, malice, slander, and filthy language which comes from the mouth. You notice the order in which Paul put those. He mentioned the filthy language last. And I gather that you realize that this is a byproduct of the earlier things. Look again. Anger. Anger is not in the mouth, anger is in the heart. Rage, similar to anger. Malice, the intent to do evil. Slander, saying things about people that are not necessarily true. And then you get the filthy language coming after. So you see the progression. We think it, then we speak it. Paul did not only mention these things, but he also mentioned and the other thing that he did not quite mention that include envy and covetousness. So that, sometimes we may want to argue, well, maybe we don't let those other things that he mentioned get hold of us. But yet, there's those little things that we tend not to pay close attention to. Envy and covetousness. You see someone who has something and we wishing that it was us that had it. Sometimes we tend to think that it's only true that do that. No, adults too. Among adults, we also find that type of thinking. And sometimes even it comes out through the sort of things that is said. And I want to warn this morning that we are careful to avoid both envy and covetousness. It's a dangerous thing for us to do, and the Bible warns us against it. Because out of these two, we can safely say comes anger, rage, malice, and slander. Instead, Paul tells us that we must clothe ourselves with compassion that includes love and empathy, kindness, humility, something that some persons find difficult to deal with, gentleness and patience. Out of these, we then see the outer manifestations as we speak. We are called to bear one another in love and to forgive each other any complaint that we may have against each other. And then he started by saying, forgive as the Lord forgive us. And of course, I would remind us of what we say when we say the Lord's Prayer. I think sometimes we say this prayer focusing on what we are actually saying. We say, forgive them that trespass against us, and then we tie a condition onto it, as we forgive them that trespass against us. I wonder if we are clear on what we are saying. Because if we rewrite it, we are actually saying, if we do not forgive, then do not forgive us. That's what we are actually saying. And therefore, we are called upon to forgive others, even as we are forgiven. And so Paul points us in the direction that we should go in our thinking, so that what comes out of us then will not defy us. And as I said before, there are several other passages of Scripture that touch on these things. And in passing, I will just mention 3 of them, which we want to look at in more detail, as I say, in your leisure time. Look at Ephesians 4, verse 29. It says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. The second one comes from the Old Testament, Psalms 19, verse 4. It says, let the words of my mouth, and we know this one very well, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. And the last one says, this is Matthew 12, verse 37, for by thy words, this is a warning, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. That is Jesus. So we have instruction. we have a prayer, we have a warning. This morning, we want to not give James any more reason to be concerned. We want to ensure that we understand what Jesus was saying to his people then, and he's saying to his people now. We have seen what we say exposes what we think was in our hearts. We have also seen that which is spoken based on the choice of statement as well as choice of words, we and others may be lifted up or torn down. We have also seen that statements that are manifest, that statements are the manifestations of inner thoughts. We have also seen that as such, it is necessary to ensure that our hearts and our thinking is acceptable in the sight of God. And therefore, our task as Christians is to build up rather than to tear down. We therefore must reach that stage in our lives where our minds are so conditioned with and through the love of God that we are inclined to speak always in turn, that is at the appropriate time, in love to each other. And therefore we must encourage each other with humbleness, gentleness, and patience, seeking peace and unity within the church, and recognizing that there is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father, who is over all and through all and in all. And this morning, I leave these words with you so that we as a church can go forward leading the world, ensuring that whatever is said and also what is done, because keep in mind, our communication is not always verbal. There are times when just a look, a shake of the shoulder, a turning around can send a strong, strong message that can do a lot of damage. And even as we consider what we speak, even as we consider our minds, getting our minds in a condition that we will speak as we should also ensure that it moves to the stage when every action is such that whenever we move, we are speaking for Christ, and Christ will recognize in us. And this morning, in the name of Christ, I leave these words to you. Let us pray. Father in heaven, this morning we have heard your word. This morning, Lord, we want to be able to put our thoughts together in a way that we will serve you continually. We want to be able, Lord, to speak as you require us to do. Help us, Lord, that whenever we communicate, regardless of the form, we communicate in a word in a way that lead others to you. Help them to recognize you in us, so that we will not be led away by the world, but the world will follow us to you. And may you open our eyes to your scriptures, that we will have a firm understanding, that you may use them to your honor and to your glory, and to the furtherance of your kingdom here on earth. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.